This is the Volkswagen Touareg launch edition model, and it won our comparison test against some of the luxurious SUVs that it competes against. But you might be wondering what it's like when it comes to towing, because it does have a decent brake towing capacity, 3.5 tons. Well, as you can see, we've got something hitched up here. And what we are towing is this, a 1963 split window single cab Kombi ute. And we're towing it from here on Sydney's beautiful northern beaches way out to Alice Springs. Come along with us for the ride. Let's see how the Touareg goes and how this thing goes as well. Day one started before the sun was even up, with our first stop being for fuel, and instantly we encountered a bit of a problem.
First issue, we can't fill up using a truck pump or a high flow diesel pump. So I'm just delicately balancing the tip on the filler neck, trying to get it all in.
This would continue to be an issue outside of Sydney, where high-flow diesel is even more prevalent. Even so, we made our way to the motorway and out of town on the Hume, stopping for brekkie at Marulan before cruising past Gundagai and turning off towards Wagga. It was time for some adjustments.
Okay, so when we left Sydney, we bought a set of towing mirrors because it's always safe to have towing mirrors. Although these ones were from Super Cheap and they feel a little bit super cheap. They do swivel around a bit and move around. They're a bit hard to get tight, which is a bit of a problem because when you're going 110 k's an hour, they move around. You can't see what's happening behind you. Thankfully, the mirrors on the Touareg are actually pretty good. And it also, we had to buy these types because our magnetised ones don't actually work because the doors are aluminium. So keep that in mind.
After undoing the mirrors, we continued beyond Wagga, tuning into some comedy as we aimed for a lunch break in Narrandera. After making friends with some of the locals, we headed to Hay, using the Waze app on the screen to keep an eye out for obstacles. A couple of hours later we made it through Hay, and with plenty of hours under our belts, it was time to share some day one thoughts.
This is a car that feels really competent and comfortable on the road, and remember, we're not towing 3.5 tons here. We've got about 2 tons-ish, 650 kilo trailer and about 1,250 kilos of car and gear on it. So that's, I mean, it's hardly a real test for the towing capability of this car, but I will say this, that it does feel supremely comfortable and supremely confident on the road. Now, the air suspension that this launch edition version has is sublime. There's different drive modes to adjust the way that the suspension, the throttle, the transmission, everything, how it all behaves. But we've been in comfort mode most of the time, and it's been exactly that. Comfortable, balanced, controlled, and never really feeling like it's struggling with the weight behind it at all. We have had one little issue with the headlights. So we're using an Elecbrakes portable electronic brake controller because this car doesn't have a fixed brake controller fitted, and that means that you have to use a phone to connect up to the Elecbrakes controller because this trailer has electronic brakes. But so what that means is you connect up through a phone and you can adjust the braking control through your phone, through an app. And it's been working really well, although we keep forgetting that you have to have the headlights on rather than on auto for it to work properly. And that means that every time we get back in the car after turning off the engine, because the headlights default to auto, then you end up hitting the brake and things just not reacting as quickly as they should. So that's been a learning curve, but not a deal breaker. And if you are interested in having an Elecbrakes controller or a portable brake controller, then it seems like a pretty good solution if you don't want to hardwire a system into your car. One thing that's been a nice surprise here is the lane keeping assist system. So it has a camera that reads the road ahead of you, reads the lines on the road, and it will keep you in your lane. But the beauty of it is that even on roads like this, where the surface isn't terrific and maybe the paintwork isn't brilliant either, the car really picks it up nicely, and it helps you, well, it takes a bit of fatigue away from the drive experience. You don't really feel like you have to fight the steering wheel constantly to keep it in its lane, and that can be a bit of a problem if you are towing something this big and if it's heavy or even heavier than this. So the steering assist system has been a real joy to use. Also, the adaptive cruise control system is working really well. We've got the distance set a little bit further back than if we weren't towing, because you want to compensate for the extra weight behind you, and it's done really well so far. We're sitting at about 110 k's an hour in this 110k zone, and keeping up with traffic is not a problem. That's because the 3-litre turbo diesel V6 has been an absolute peach so far. 8-speed automatic, no issues whatsoever, and it's going really nicely. Now, you might be wondering about the fuel use. We will get to that later, but I want to keep a tally of how it goes over the 3 days all the way to Alice Springs, just to see what the actual fuel use is at the end, and I'll update you at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Until tomorrow, we'll see you then. As the sun dropped, we made good use of the twin visors on both sides up front and played with the ambient lights before crossing the mighty Murray River into Victoria and the city of Mildura, our stopping point for the first day of the trip. Day 2 began in frosty Mildura, where we headed out early with the aim of making it to Coober Pedy before dark. That wouldn't happen, but we marvelled at the way the landscape changed on our way to the South Australian border. If you've never been through this way, you may marvel at the amazing Dunlop tyre. Weird, huh? The landscape continued to change, and it changed again. We knew we were heading towards Central Australia, but the green fields and occasional patch of golden glow took us by surprise as we approached the ancient town of Spalding, where we again made friends with a local. The plains opened up as we approached Port Augusta, with the solar farm beacon lighting our way. We headed through the town and turned off towards Coober Pedy, heading due north. Day 2 of the epic Touareg towing torture test, and it's been smooth sailing once again. We've done about 850 kilometres once more, still a few hundred to go today, and the sun is getting low in the sky, so apologies for the sunnies, but what we've found today is that the fuel tank of the new generation Touareg isn't quite big enough to allow you to get between two distant spots. So we had to turn around at one point because we realised we weren't going to make it from Port Augusta to the next fuel stop. So we turned around, went back to Port Augusta and filled up. Now the reason for that, or part of the reason, is that the new Touareg has a 75-litre fuel tank. The previous generation V6 model had a 85-litre fuel tank, and the V8s had a 100-litre fuel tank. And that might be a bit of an issue for you if you plan to do long distance driving like we're doing, because there are moments where you will find that you've got maybe about 550 or 600 kilometers of range available to you, but the next stop is 550 or 600 k's away. So you've got to bear that in mind. Always take spare fuel with you, but you know, you never want to walk that line too closely. One of the things today we remembered about this Touareg, because it's the launch edition, is that it gets massaging seats. That's both front seats have multi-mode massage systems, and they work amazingly well. They're really good for helping you lessen that fatigue once more on these long distance trips. Again, a very important factor if you're doing big drives. Another important factor with the seats is that they're cooled and heated. This morning when we left Mildura, it was about 4 or 5 degrees. There was frost on the windscreen, and by the time we reached out in the middle of the desert, it was up towards 26, 27 degrees. So we had heating in the morning and cooling in the evening. And that was an important part of today's progress, because again, those little things help you feel less fatigued. Obviously we've been swapping drivers. I'm here with my co-pilot Dion, and it's his car that we're selling, and we've been taking stints along the way We've got a few hours left. Unfortunately, we've been running a little bit late today, so we're going to be driving with a bit of dusk and a bit of nighttime, but that will give us the chance to sample the full LED matrix headlights that the Touareg has. We can't wait to see how they perform out here in the outback. So, until tomorrow, we'll see you then. After a few near misses with bouncy blokes on the side of the road, we pulled into Kombi for the night. It was a relief to get there in one piece. We were greeted by a landscape like no other on the morning of day 3. If you've never been out here, you really ought to. After a quick fuel run for the Touareg and brekkie run for us, we continued on our way towards Alice Springs, marvelling at the mounds of earth that stand out like pimples on a teenager's face all around Kombi. Good morning, we are on day 3 of our epic Touareg tour of Australia, and today we have left Kombi. We're on our way to Alice Springs, which is the last leg of the journey. As you can see, I'm in the passenger seat because Dion is driving the first leg today. We've had a nice start to the morning, bit cold, bit breezy, but we've also had some drama. I broke the clip on the sun visor, sorry Volkswagen. Today also we've come across our first section of really coarse chip road surface. Now this is made to be more durable to heat, to heavy vehicles, that sort of stuff, and it does have an impact on how much noise comes into the cabin. I feel like I'm having to talk a little bit louder today than I was compared to the roads we were driving on the last few days. But imagine if you had a car that had really bad noise insulation. This car doesn't, and it's still not too loud, it's just a touch louder than it was before. Obviously the sand is getting redder as we go north. We're seeing more and more wildlife. We've seen lots of wedge-tail eagles and lots of dead kangaroos. We didn't manage to hit one last night, thankfully, but we'll keep moving and we'll update you when we get to Alice Springs. The hours flew by and soon we made it to the city in the centre of the country. Alice Springs! The next task was to get the Kombi off the trailer. This was a sad moment for us. It marked the end of our journey, but it was definitely a happy moment for its new owner. After 3 days and 3,000 kilometres, we've made it to our destination. The Kombi is off the trailer, as you can see behind me. We're packed up and ready to go to the hotel for the night because it's been an epic couple of days. And look, there haven't been that many issues with the car apart from the electric brakes and the auto headlights constantly cutting them off. And also the fact that the small fuel tank does mean that you've got to consider how far you can go before you get there. Now, fuel use, well, you've been waiting to know about it. And here it is. It's up to you whether you think the Touareg is right for you, but we would say that over really long distance drives like we've been doing, the fuel tank could be a deal breaker. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Also, don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and stay tuned for more great Cars Guide content.